Students, the curriculum of engineering, especially computer science engineering and information technology, has been designed in such a way that a student needs to learn at least one programming language per semester. If you observe the JN2K curriculum that currently we are studying, in first year, first semester, you people have learned C programming language. Similarly, in first year, second semester also you have learned one more programming language called C++. In second year, first semester, you have learned one more programming language. Can anyone identify by looking at this logo? Students, by this time it should be familiar to identify the corresponding programming language if the logo is given. Yes, it is Python. Similarly, in 2.2 also you have learned one more programming language, that is Java. In third year, you have learned a database called Oracle. Now, in this semester, that is 4-1 semester, you are going to learn and practice one more programming language or technology which is currently used by many real-time applications in this generation. The technology or language is known as, can anyone guess by looking at this logo? Students, a yellow color elephant-like picture. Yes, it is Hadoop. H-A-D-O-O-P. This is a new technology which we are going to learn in this semester. Why we should learn this technology? What is the history behind this Hadoop and all will be looking in next couple of slides. So before going into the technical details, I just want to introduce myself. I am Chandrakala Kuruma, working as assistant professor in Computer Science Engineering Department, Vigyanas Nirula Institute of Technology and Science for Women. Students, in this semester, I am going to deal a subject called Hadoop and Big Data for you. Yes. So students, before going into the technical details of Hadoop and Big Data, I just want you people to know three things, or you must know three things before learning any new technology. I mean, you just make an habit of like whenever you learn any new technology, the three questions should be in your mind before going to learn any new technology. The first question is, who developed that particular language? The second one is, in which year it has been developed? And the third question is, for what purpose it has been developed? Again, I am repeating, students, if you are going to learn any new technology, make sure that you know the answers for the following questions. 1. Who developed that particular language? Second, in which year it has been developed? And third one, for what purpose it has been developed? These three questions, the answers for these three questions needs to be known by you before actually starting learning the new technology. It's not compulsion, but it's a good habit to know the answers for these three questions. Okay, fine. Now students, as I said, what is the first question? Who developed that particular technology or language? Which language we are going to learn, or which technology we are going to learn in the semester? Hadoop. So who are the founders of Hadoop, or who are the developers of Hadoop? So we are discussing the founders of Hadoop now. There are two founders or two persons behind development of Hadoop. The first person is Doug Cutting. He is a computer scientist in University of Michigan in 2003. And the second person is Mike Caffarella. He is a co-founder of Hadoop. He is also a computer scientist in University of Michigan, America. These two people are the founders and co-founders of Hadoop. Students, they started developing this Hadoop in 2003, and later in 2005, the first version of Hadoop has been released into the market. And in 2009, this project has been handed over to a company called Apache, and at that time this project has been renamed as Apache Hadoop. Okay, who developed Hadoop? Doug Cutting and Mike Caffarella. In which year it has been developed? They started developing in 2003 and the first version has been released in 2005. Okay, fine. Students, if you observe the image of Doug Cutting, he is holding a toy in his hand. an yellow colored elephant like toy, isn't it? Yes. So why he is holding that toy? Is there any significance for that toy, or is there any relation between that toy and this project? We usually get it out because I have kept the image purposefully. Okay. Yes, there is a relation between the toy and the project Apache Hadoop. So instead of telling what is a purpose, what is a significance in my own words, I let you people to listen to his words with his own voice. Okay, sit back and watch this video.
So the name Hadoop comes from my son's toy elephant. When he was about 2, a friend gave him a little stuffed elephant, which he played with incessantly, and we overheard him calling it something, the strange word that he invented, and said Hadoop. So I immediately wrote it down because I was in the software business and we're always looking for good names, and this one came with a mascot even. And a few years later, when I needed a project name, pulled it out. Now I wrote it down as Hadoop and figured that everyone would say Hadoop. Now it turns out everyone says Hadoop instead, but I persist in saying Hadoop. Now my son, of course, is 13 and expects royalties for the name. He wants more credit. He also accuses me of stealing the toy. At some point, he was using it in some kind of rocket ship experiment, and I had to rescue it. And now it lives in my sock drawer for safety.
So students, this is the short story behind naming this project as Hadoop.
Isn't it? Yes. Let's move on. So students, today's class agenda is: why should I learn Hadoop? What is big data and its characteristics? What exactly Hadoop is? When to use Hadoop and when not to use Hadoop? These 4 things we are going to cover in this session. Fine. What is the first one? Why Hadoop? Like, what is the purpose of Hadoop? Students, I'll be getting a lot of questions from my previous batch students asking like, ma'am, why should I learn many programming languages? Can't I restrict to 1 or 2 programming languages like only Python, only C, only C++? Can't I use the same set of programming languages to develop all kinds of applications? Is that the valid doubt, aren't students? Yes, it is a valid question, right? Why should I learn many programming languages? Can't I restrict to 1 or 2? That 1 or 2 can't I use to develop all kinds of applications? The question is valid. Before answering these questions, students, you just pause my video, go to your wardrobe, open it, have a glance on your wardrobe, come back. I will answer for your question. Yes, students, what did you observe? Different kinds of clothes, very good. Different colors, different types of clothes, super. So we have many different kinds of wear in our wardrobe, isn't it? Casual wear, party wear, night wear, formal wear, woolen wear, cotton wear. We have many kinds of clothes in our wear. Students, do we really require those? Those many number of different kinds of clothes. Think it. Yes, we require, right? We do require. Because I cannot wear a party dress to a meeting. I cannot wear a casual dress to a party. Similarly, I cannot wear a woolen dress in summer. I feel discomfort for it. I feel discomfort. I cannot wear it. Similarly, I cannot use the same programming language to develop all kinds of applications. Once again, I am repeating, I cannot use the same set of programming languages to develop all kinds of applications. A specific programming language is meant to develop a specific kind of application. In order to give an example for you, let's see, C and C++ has been used to develop embedded systems or operating systems like Windows and Apple has been developed using C and C++ only. Similarly, the browsers like Firefox, Mozilla Firefox has been developed using C++. So C++ is meant to use Only these kind of applications. If I want to develop any web applications, then comes Java. Java can be used to develop any sort of web applications like ticket booking systems we are currently using. Railway ticket booking system IRCTC as well as flight ticket booking system, that is Make My Trip. These two are the web applications designed using Java only. Similarly, e-commerce websites are also designed using Java only. I cannot use C and C++ for it because the features of C does not support to develop a web application. Okay. Similarly, if I want to if I want to develop any machine learning models or deep learning models, the suitable programming language is Python and R. I cannot use C and Java for that. In order to develop IoT applications also, I can use the best fit programming language is Python. In the same line, in the same go, the Hadoop also. Students, back 2003, 2004 to till date, there is a buzzword in computer science field. A new era has been evolved in computer science field. A new term has been evolved in computer science field. That term is called as big data. Large amounts of data, huge amounts of data. Coming from where? Generating by whom? We. Humans will generate the data as well as the machines also generates the data. Humans, we are generating the data, is it? Yes, we are generating the data. If you observe, we'll be mostly attached to two things in our day-to-day life. One is WhatsApp, another one is Facebook, social networking sites, Twitter, Facebook and all. Facebook and Twitter generates lots of data per day. We'll be uploading the data into the Facebook. We'll be responding to the messages. We'll be uploading the video files into the Facebook. All the data is big data only. You won't believe, students, Facebook is generating 10 terabytes of data per day. I mean, the people all over the world are sharing the messages, posting the messages, sharing the image files and all. Similarly, machines like satellites. From satellites also we are getting the data, the numerical data, the image data we are getting. The GPS data, that is also a large amounts of data. It is also called as big data. Similarly, from sensors also we are getting data, that is large amounts of data. It is called big data. Medical data, medical image data, that is also big data. All this data is called as big data. So this is a term we are hearing from past 10 years onwards. In order to store this data for future purpose or to process this data, to retrieve some useful information, we need some technology. At that time, the technologies which were there like Java, C or Python, those are not supported to store or process this big data. Those programming languages are not suitable to store and process this big data. Why should I store? Why should I process? We'll be covering this topic in later slides. To process the big data, to store these amounts of big data, I need one programming language. I need one technology. There is a need at that time in 2003-2005. So the people, Dow Cutting and Mike Caffarella has come up with a new technology called Hadoop to process and store the large amounts of data. So, the big data technologies are Hadoop and Spark. Spark is also one more big data technology which will be covering the basics of this. The complete in and outs of Hadoop I will be covering in this semester. Students, why Hadoop? What is the purpose of Hadoop? The Hadoop is used to store and process the big data. Okay. You know, right? What is the purpose of learning Hadoop? What is the purpose to learn Hadoop? To process and store large amounts of data, that is big data. As Java or C or Python does not support to store and process large volumes of data, so only I am going for one more new technology called Hadoop. So I am speaking about a term called big data, big data, big data. So what does exactly the big data is? We are going to see now. Okay. So what is big data? The name itself gives a clue. The data which is big in size. large amounts of data, huge amounts of data is known as big data. Large amounts of data in the sense how much data I can call it as a big data. Do we have any term called small data? No, we don't have any term called small data. We have just a term data. Another term is big data. So what amounts of data can call it as a big data? The next question. Usually the memory, the data which we are storing in the memory will be represented in the form of bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes, exabytes, zettabytes, yottabytes. This is a memory hierarchy. Okay. The data which starts from terabytes to till yottabytes, we usually call it as big data. Kilobytes of data, megabytes of data, gigabytes of data is just a data. The data which it measures in terms of terabytes or petabytes, exa, zetta or yotta, we call it as big data. Fine. Students, whenever I listen or hear this word zettabyte, I connect myself to a movie called Robo. Have you watched it? Robo 1.0 version, which was released around 2010. Yes. We usually watch all the movies, right? Okay. So, what is the name of the robo in that movie? Chitty. Very good. Who developed it? Who designed that robo in that movie? Vasikaran, Rajnikant. Fine. What is the configuration of that movie? Sorry. What is the configuration of that robo in that movie? Can anyone? Did anyone remember? No. Okay, fine. Watch this video. I come to.
Boy, another one. Speed 1 terahertz, memory 1 zettabyte.
So students, what is the configuration of Chitty? Speed 1 terahertz, memory 1 zettabyte. 1 zettabytes of data it can store. 1 zettabyte is equals to 1024 exabytes. 1 exabyte is equals 1024 petabytes. Similarly, likewise, it can store 1 zettabytes of data in it. If you clearly watch that movie, in one scene, Chitty will be scanning one phone dictionary. Within nanoseconds, the data in that phone dictionary will be stored in him, because it is having lots of data. The speed is 1 terahertz as well as the data memory is also 1 zettabyte. It can process it and it can store it fastly. The speed as well as memory, both are correlated here. Okay. Similarly, we do have one more definition for big data. That is the data wherein we cannot store it in a single machine is known as big data. If I am not able to store my data into a single machine, they can call it as a big data. So students, you may get a doubts like, ma'am, for example, if I am having like 1 GB of data and my machine configuration is below that, like 250 MB of hard disk I am having. So in this case, I cannot store my data into my machine. So can I call that data as big data? Is it so? No. Students, you need to make this definition on par to the market, current market value. That is, in market we are getting 1 TB of hard disk available, isn't it? We are very much available to 1 TB of hard disk in the market. We need to always on par to that only. For example, if I am having 1 terabytes of data with me and my machine configuration is 1 terabyte, I can happily store that data into a machine. At that time, I cannot call that data as a big data. For example, I am having 10 terabytes of data with me and my machine configuration is 1 terabyte, then I cannot store my data into my machine. So that time my data is a big data. Okay, fine. What if, fine, I know I cannot store my data into my machine because my data is 10 TB of data, but my machine configuration is 1 terabytes of data. So what is the solution for this? How can I store the data? The simple answer for this is connect group of machines together. And on the top of the machines, we can store the data. Like I'm having 10 terabytes of data and the machine configuration is 1 terabyte. So the same configuration machines, like 10 machines, you should interconnect with each other. On the top of that, I can store my data. So the big data which we are speaking will be stored not on a single machine but on a distributed machines. It's a distributed storage, not a centralized storage. We are storing the data in a distributed systems, not on a single systems. If you see here, I have formed a cluster. Cluster means group of machines interconnected with each other. On the top of that, I am storing my big data. Big data, the data cannot be stored on it. The data which we are having, if I cannot store that data on a single machine, then I can call that data as a big data. So how can I store? By forming a cluster again. Okay, fine. So we know what is big data now. One is the characteristics of big data. I am telling the big data definitions and all. Fine. What exactly the data is? Now we are going to speak in terms of V's. Big data can be represented in terms of 5 V's. The first V stands for volume. The second V stands for velocity. The third V stands for variety. Fourth V stands for veracity, and fifth V stands for value. These are the 5 V's, 5 characteristics of big data. Some people will be representing the big data in terms of 9 V's, 11 V's also. But these 5 V's, from these 5 V's, we can derive the rest of the V's. Okay, fine. So what is the first V stands? Volume. Volume means quantity. Quantity of the data. How much it is. It is either zettabytes or petabytes or exabytes. It represents the quantity. Similarly, velocity. Velocity represents the speed. Either it is a batch data or streaming data. For example, if you take the Facebook is a streaming data. It will be streaming all the time, right? It is not a batch. Streaming data as well as batch data. At a high speed, the data will be generated by satellites as well as by social networking sites. The third one is variety. Whatever the data I am speaking, the data is of different kinds, like structured data, unstructured data, and semi-structured data. Semi-structured data usually comes in the form of JSON files, and unstructured data means the image files, audio files, video files, we call it as unstructured data. Next one is veracity. The data which we are speaking about is not consistent data. It is inconsistent, uncertain data. It may contain missing values, null values, noise. It is not an accurate data or consistent data because we are getting it from different sources. No, we cannot tell that it is a consistent data. That is veracity. The next one is value. Whatever the data we are having, from that data, it is an inconsistent data. From that data, if we are able to retrieve the useful information, then only that data has the value. Otherwise of no value. Again I am repeating, whatever the data we are speaking, if from that data we are able to extract the useful information, then only that data has some value. Otherwise of no value. Okay, these are the 5 characteristics of big data. Very, very important, students. Volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value. So we know why should I learn Hadoop? What is big data? How can I represent big data using some V's? Till now we have learned that. We have discussed that. Okay, fine. What is Hadoop? So the next one is what is Hadoop? The definition is given like this. It is an open source framework which is used to store large volumes of data using HDFS and can process it by using MapReduce programming model. Okay, once again I am repeating, it is an open source framework which is used to store big data, that is large volumes of data using HDFS, and can process it by using MapReduce programming model. So students, I have identified some keywords in this. We will be discussing those keywords now. Fine, okay. The first keyword is open source. Open source means the code of that particular language or technology will be freely available on the web. We can download it, we can modify it, edit it, and we can redistribute to the other users if we want. The opposite term for open source is commercial softwares. Commercial softwares, we cannot download it for free, we have to pay for it. Open source means it is freely available. The next one is framework. 80% of the user's task is automized. Once again, I am repeating, 80% of the user, that is we, the programmers, will be automized. What kind of work is automized here in Hadoop? One may get a doubt. For what purpose we are using Hadoop, students? To store and to process large volumes of data, isn't it? Yes. To store the data, we will be using HDFS. I'll be covering in the next slide. Storing of data into the Hadoop is automized. 80% of the work is automized there. How to store, where to store, how to provide security for the data, all these things, no need to worry. The system itself will take care. No need of as a programmer, we no need to bother for that. If we give the data to the system, it will automatically split it, automatically distribute it on the cluster, and it will provide the security for it. That is automized here. Okay, fine. The next one is storage. The data, big data, cannot be stored on a centralized server because it is large volumes of data. The single machine cannot accommodate, isn't it? So what we are doing, how we are going to store it? We are forming a cluster. Cluster means group of commodity machines interconnected with each other using a LAN. On the top of the cluster, I am going to install the Hadoop. After that, I am going to give the data to the Hadoop. The Hadoop will distribute the data onto the cluster. Once again, I am repeating, students. How I am going to store the data into HDFS? I have to form a cluster first. Cluster means group of commodity machines. On the top of the cluster, I am going to install Hadoop and I will be giving the data to the Hadoop. The Hadoop will redistribute the data onto the cluster. Fine. Now, the one more word is there, commodity machines. What is commodity machines? What are commodity machines? The machines which are economically affordable by us is known as commodity machines. The opposite term for commodity machines is high-end machines, high-end servers. If you observe, students, the organizations cannot afford to buy many servers, isn't it? One or two servers we can buy with high configuration. The rest of the things will be going for commodity machines. Okay, fine. So the next one is, the most important one is HDFS. So the next one is HDFS, the most important component in Hadoop. I can say it as a brain of the Hadoop. As a human, how much importance does the brain plays in our day-to-day life? The same way HDFS is the brain of Hadoop. The HDFS stands for Hadoop Distributed File System. Okay. The main property of HDFS is write once, read many times. The main property of HDFS is write once and read many times. I will be discussing the in-depth about this when I start discussing the HDFS architecture in my later 2 or 3 classes after. I am just giving an overlook now. So, I am repeating the property once again. Write once and read many times. I cannot write the data very frequently into the Hadoop. It does not support. Why or not, we will be covering in the next classes. It's not necessary now actually. Okay. You just remember that property. So this component, HDFS is a component which plays a major role in Hadoop. It is for storing the data. For what purpose we use HDFS? To store big data onto the cluster. We use HDFS. One more component is there, that is MapReduce. MapReduce is a programming model which is built on top of the Java. It is used to process the large volumes of data. I said HDFS is the brain of Hadoop. In a similar way, MapReduce is the heart of the Hadoop. These two are the major components of Hadoop. These two are the major components of Hadoop. One is HDFS, another one is MapReduce programming model. HDFS is for storing purpose, MapReduce is for processing. These two are brain and heart for Hadoop. Without anyone, it cannot function. Both should be there. So if anyone asks, whenever you memorize the Hadoop concept, the main two things in Hadoop is, one is HDFS, another one is MapReduce programming model. HDFS is for storing big data. MapReduce is for processing the big data. How to store, how to process, we'll be looking in couple of classes later. Okay, for time being, you just go with my flow. Fine. You know what is Hadoop now. So what is the last question which we are going to discuss in this class? When to use Hadoop and when not to use Hadoop. Hadoop can be best fit for storing large amounts of data but not small amounts of data. I cannot use Hadoop to store small amounts of data. Like if I take any engineering college, a medium scale engineering college, if I want to store the students' details of that college, Hadoop is not best fit for that because only GB of data will be getting. It's not some terabytes or petabytes of data. In the same go, if I take MIT University students' data, yes, for that data if I want to store, Hadoop is the best fit. Okay. The second one is Hadoop is best to process unstructured data. The best example for this is medical data, medical image data. If you want to process any medical image data or any video files, any audio files data, the best technology is Hadoop. And the next one is, it is not suitable for real-time analytics but best suitable for batch processing applications. Once again I am repeating, Hadoop is not best fit for real-time analytics but best for batch processing applications. What does that mean exactly? I'll give an example for this. Students, if you take Facebook data, it will be streaming data. It will be streaming all the time. It will be generating every second, right? That data I cannot process it using HDFS. That data I cannot process using Hadoop because it is streaming. In real time I am getting the data. I cannot store it in HDFS continuously because what is the property of HDFS? Write once, read many times. I can only write it into the Hadoop once, but read many times. I cannot frequently update the data. But it's best suitable for batch processing applications. For example, if I want to process 2019 Facebook users data, yes, this is best technology to store and process that data. Okay, fine. So we know when to use Hadoop and when not to use Hadoop. So students, I'll be summarizing my class. In this class, we have discussed why I should learn a new technology, that is big data technology called Hadoop. And we know a little bit about what is big data and how we are going to represent the big data. The next one is what exactly the Hadoop is. The last one is when to use Hadoop and when not to use Hadoop. Okay, fine. Students, you have listened my class. With that knowledge, try to answer the following questions. Can I call 10 GB of data as big data? Yes or no? 1 zettabytes of data is equals to dash gigabytes. How much data does Facebook generate per day approximately? The fourth question will be very interesting. See, does Google uses Hadoop to store its data? We usually, in our day-to-day life, we always depend on the Google only. Google has large amounts of data with it. YouTube data, Gmail data, web search engine data, isn't it? Large amounts of data. Which technology it is using to store that data and to process it? Either is it Hadoop or any other technology? Find it out. Next, can I use Hadoop to store and process Vigyan University students' data? If yes, justify how. If not, also I need justification. Okay, fine. And thank you, students. Have a nice day.